So I mentioned much earlier in the series that Sneak King and the other Burger King games were originally meant to be released on Xbox Live Arcade. And I made fun of Burger King a bit because their reason for not releasing the games on XBLA was because they thought the games were too high quality. And they didn't seem to understand that something being released digitally doesn't make it less quality. And then I went on to say it's a good thing they released it physically because the sales were astronomical. There is another good reason that it was released physically though, and that's because the nature of digital games is quite fleeting. The Blitz Arcade division that was funded by the release of Sneak King was quite successful and made many interesting and unique games that were only available digitally, many only available specifically on the Xbox Live Arcade store. And most, if not all of those games are gone now, because they went away when Blitz Games went away. Now it should be quite obvious from previous videos that I like Sneak King quite a lot. And eventually I'm sure I'll play the other Burger King games. But I wouldn't have this option if these games were released digitally only, because they would be gone right now. Some games seem to persist after their developer's death, some do not, and I'm not sure quite what determines this, but there's probably many factors involved, and it's on a case-by-case basis, I'm sure. So I'm not sure there's like one universal answer for something like that. One of these games that was supposedly lost forever was SpongeBob Underpants Slam, a licensed game created by Blitz Games that was based on the SpongeBob license, as a few of other Blitz games were. The game was taken down from the Xbox Live Arcade when THQ and, well, Blitz Games disappeared from existence. But, you may be surprised to know it's back up as of 2018. And this shocked me a great deal. But the reason it's back up is because of the efforts of one particularly hard-working publisher that really cares about pleasing fans, because they found that to be a viable marketing strategy. There is a publisher by the name of Nordic Games that decided it was a great idea to buy up all of THQ's properties when THQ went under. And they went a bit further than that and worked with some of THQ's former partners in order to get some licenses that THQ had at the time, including various Nickelodeon licenses, and the license for SpongeBob Underpants Slam. So a game that was thought lost forever because of the nature of digital games not only came back, but it came back legally, perfectly available for purchase right now on the Xbox Live Arcade. And I feel this story is very, very important to tell, because it preserves a part of Blitz Games' legacy. A developer that was very prolific at one time, but has fallen out of pretty much anyone's memory at all, period. This particular story also teaches us that it's not just digital original IPs that can come back, but digital licensed games can even be returned from the abyss if someone wants it badly enough. And I think that's quite a hopeful story. It's true, the number of people actually wanting to still play SpongeBob Underpants Slam is probably quite minimal, but I'm one of those people. I didn't get an Xbox 360 until just last year, and I never had the chance. So even though Blitz Arcade is gone, as are most of their games, and I almost didn't have the chance to play Sneak King, I felt it was important to mention that it is possible to get back some of gaming's lost history. You just have to have people in the right places who care the right amount. By far the biggest obstacle in preserving games seems to be the idea that certain licensors and publishers don't think it will be profitable. But THQ Nordic Games has been reproducing and republishing so many unpopular licenses lately, and still managed to turn a profit. Maybe someone should be asking them how they do it, and be taking pointers. In case you're curious, yes, I'm still going to be talking about the game design for the rest of the video after this mission. But because I really wanted an A rank on this mission, and I really wanted to fulfill the mission requirements in the most obnoxious way possible, this mission lasts 6 minutes, so I felt it was necessary to talk about something besides just the game. But don't worry, starting with the next mission, we'll go back to talking to the game design. Talking about the game design, not talking to it. If I could talk directly to the game design, that would be amazing. I suppose in a way I can communicate with the game design, but I have to do it through the controller, which is not the optimal way to do it. It is the way that we have, you know, but I'd like to find some sort of weird middle ground where my brain can speak in video game design. Like, I can only see what the game gives me, and I can only get so much out of what the game gives me because my perception is limited. But if I could just speak straight game design, I could find out more things about the game than I would ever find out just through human interaction. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't know what I'm saying because I have never heard anyone go on a tangent like this in my life before about this particular thing. But then again, I don't know anyone that plays video games quite the way I do, so maybe I'm just weird. Maybe that's the issue here. But people seem to enjoy me being weird and overanalyzing video games that nobody else likes, so I do that a lot. I mean, self-deprecation aside, I don't think it's overanalysis at all. There's a lot that goes into designing video games, and it's important to analyze it as thoroughly as possible. Oh shit, it's over. One-liner. One-liner, mission complete. One-liner. Now, I quite like this mission because it forces you to deliver in an area that you might have otherwise ignored so far, and there are good reasons for forcing you to deliver here, most of them involving the final mission where you have to deliver to everyone on the map. And if you're not familiar with everyone's movement patterns in their backyards, then that mission can be significantly more intense and difficult. So they want you to deliver to the backyard early. Now, it took me an absurd amount of time to finish the final mission in this area anyway, but still, you know, this makes it easier, having to go in the backyard and memorize some of their patterns so that way you can use that knowledge later. It also shows that Blitz games, again, for this particular title and many of their arcade titles, are willing to explore their mechanics and the area they have available to its fullest. You know, they don't take any space they have here for granted, and they're going to make you use all of that space because they used all of that space in their game design. Granted, if you don't complete every mission, you can just kind of opt out of experiencing all of the game design. And sometimes that's fine, in some games that's okay because the game design you miss is minimal to non-existent. But in this game, every mission plays a part of the game. Well, almost every mission plays a part of the game design, and the missions that don't positively contribute to the game design are still valuable to study because they can show you what went wrong. I mean, this game isn't perfect or any such thing. It's a good game that explores its design principles thoroughly, but no game is perfect, especially one so mechanically focused. This game is almost entirely mechanically focused, with little frills or cinematic flair to speak of. So the mechanics are what make the game. And you know, maybe that's not what people thought was ideal when they purchased Sneak King for their Xbox 360. Maybe they were expecting a game that was more outwardly humorous or more simplistic. They didn't expect to have to, like, think and shit. Which I can get why you might think that. But I thought that at first too, and then when I bought the game and realized it actually wanted me to think about its mechanics and how they work, I immediately switched gears and started doing that. If you've already committed to something, if you've already decided you're going to be along for the ride, then you might as well try to analyze the design while you're there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would just be plain silly of me to go into the game with the wrong mindset and let that mindset persist for no reason at all. I love how slowly he gets out of that can. I feel really lucky because the people who found my game channel seem to be some of the only people that understand the way I think and how much I love video games. I managed to have a couple friends that also understand how I love video games and how I feel as well, but having this number of people who want to watch me talk about video games and their design is kind of incredible, because what I do isn't really sensationalist, and I pick a lot of games nobody has ever fucking heard of, or just don't care about at all, like Sneak King. Alright, this is the final backyard delivery. It was a pretty easy mission, but it served a purpose. Thank you. Please come to Burger King for all of your introspective thoughts. Buy a Whopper while you're there. I love how self-aware that mission description is. Because they try to bring up the principles of the design of this specific mission, and then they're like, oh yeah, that design applies to the whole game, pretty much. I love that. I love that level of self-awareness. And it also makes it so that way you have to confront the idea that this game has design. You know, you can't just ignore that this game has design now, because they specifically drew attention to it. I mean, you can still probably ignore it if you want. Like, the ideal way to play this game and ignore all the design and pretend it's not a valuable piece of game history is if you were to comment over it with multiple people and just make fun of the game without any regard for the design whatsoever. And then you won't need to put any thought into why things are the way they are in the game. I'm not going to name names, I'm just going to assume generally, based on the videos I've seen regarding Sneak King, that that's the easiest way to go about not thinking about the game design. Like, if you're absolutely determined to convince yourself the game has nothing of value and there's no design to analyze, that seems like the optimal way to go about that. You know, originally, instead of For the Love of Games under my channel banner, I was going to put Don't Hate the Game, Hate the Player. But that seemed too mean-spirited, because the idea was to talk about how great games are, not how terrible people are for not appreciating great games. But sometimes that original idea slips out, that original slogan. I try not to let that happen too much, though, because, like, again, I'm very lucky to be surrounded by so many people that understand how I feel about games. Mission accomplished. Please remember not to accidentally let your misanthropy slip out in the middle of a video. But if it does happen, you can always stress eat at Burger King. I mean, assuming you're playing the game casually, 6 deliveries in 2 minutes, kind of a decent challenge. I don't remember thinking it was particularly challenging for me, especially since after playing all the previous missions and understanding how the game works, I had a good idea of where I could deliver to, how quickly, and, you know, all that jazz, so this mission was easy for me, but for a casual player, probably a decent challenge, and even though I'm very used to the game, it's still a reasonable enough pinch of spice, you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit of extra flavor to the experience. You know, I forgot about that mission text. The mission text for this mission in particular. It's kind of weird, because they say their mention of that old phrase nicely segues into this mission objective. It doesn't really. But I do agree with them. The idea that kids should be seen and not heard is stupid, and this comes from someone that does not really like to spend time around children. But that's mostly because the circumstances of a children's development are determined by the adults around them. And sometimes adults don't realize that they should be treating children like people, You know, like tiny people instead of weird hey, I'm trying to deliver sandwiches. But for some reason, we don't take children's words, ideas, and insecurities as seriously as adults, and that can severely fuck up their development and emotional stability. Speaking as someone who had that happen. Mission accomplished. Please remember to also buy your children a Whopper. Oh boy, we're here at the final challenge already. This one takes a while, takes quite a long time. Takes even longer if you try and get the highest score imaginable. Thankfully that is not my goal here. Now, I believe I said this level was much more flat with less hazards in it. And I do think that's true, but I neglected to mention that the backyard was a significant hazard in itself. Because although the level seems largely flat and simplistic, the backyard is... It throws quite a wrench in this final mission. The idea that you have to navigate into someone's backyard without accidentally bumping into anyone else while you get there. Because the openings to the backyard are very small, which makes getting back there a challenge if you don't want to get spotted. And especially if you want to do it without getting spotted and quickly. The challenge the backyard presents might not even be noticeable until you get to this final mission for the area, but it's there, and there's a reason it's there. It does make things significantly more difficult for the final mission. You know, I was hesitant to come back to this game at first, because, I don't know, I guess it was just a variety of really stupid reasons. Like, I thought, hey, maybe I spontaneously forgot how to talk about game design, or maybe I don't like the game as much as I thought I did, or some shit like that. This one's really sneaky. She's kind of hard to find. Thankfully, you have the mini-map. But you might not know how to get to her. Like, you might not know if you can deliver to her through walls. You can, by the way. The power of Burger penetrates all obstacles. But I was hesitant to come back to this game because I thought, oh no, maybe I spontaneously forgot how to talk about game design, or spontaneously stopped liking the game, or some shit like that. But no. If anything, my appreciation for the game has gotten more prevalent over time, and I'm having even more fun playing and talking about the game now than I was earlier. So that's pretty neat. In next video, we'll get to do the level I think people probably hate the most in the game. And I can see why they hate it. I hate having to say I can see why they hate it, but I can see why. I think it's silly that they hate it for that reason, but I can see it. Let's just say the next level will have a lot of interesting pathfinding, the most interesting pathfinding in the game, in fact. And the game will become much more of a puzzle game than the previous locations. I mean, all single-player games are puzzle games to a certain extent, but, you know, there's a noticeable leap up in thinkiness required in getting from one person to another in the next location. I'm aware thinkiness is not a word. Why do you think I said it? I was originally planning to speed up this mission, but, you know, I think you should see the mission in its entirety. Even if it might have been better to speed it up, it really shows the whole level, really shows all the AI patterns coming together. So I think it's entertaining enough to watch. You know, no joke. I almost cried a little bit during this video. Because, you know, it's been a while since I recorded commentary for Sneak King. And I kind of forgot what it was like to be able to deliver a game that was very well hated to a group of people that actually care and listen to what I have to say and offer constructive feedback and their own angles on the game design. That's a very beautiful thing to have. And I know it's like not of importance to most people, but it's one of the most important things to me. And the idea that I'm able to have something so specific, so esoteric, but so meaningful to me, particularly in my life, that's just wonderful. It kind of sucks that there was a brief period in my life where my water almost fell onto my laptop, and that would have been disastrous. It kind of sucks that there was a brief period in my life where I was more known for playing games that made me upset or that I thought were bad, but I shared because I thought they had valuable design anyway. Because that's not what the large library of things I play are. Most of the games I play are games I love. You know, I don't often look at a game with mediocre design or bad design and go, man, this absolutely needs to be shared right now. Usually what happens is I play a game and I'm like, oh my god, the design in this game absolutely has to be talked about, and so does the game as a whole, and its history, and its developers, and everything about it. And that's how Let's Plays are born for me, a desire to share something I think is beautiful or important. Like the organic level design in Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, or the really strange story and unique hack-and-slash elements of Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. The incredibly well-explored first-person platforming in Pongo that uses a set of mechanics I haven't seen in any other first-person platformers. The clever use of Pac-Man's chomping ability in 3D space from the Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures games. The everything amazing about the simple-to-use but hard-to-master combat system in Anarchy Reigns. The absolutely gorgeous art style and beautifully dark story of Tron Evolution. You know, there's just so many games. I played Iron Man on the PS3, which is my 5th favorite game of all time. I spent way more time analyzing the level design in The Simpsons Road Rage than I think anyone else ever has or ever will. In spite of that game being kind of broken on the PS2. And then there's Ken's Rage, which I'm so flabbergasted that I managed to record Ken's Rage to such a degree that it inspired other people to not only love the game, but make their own videos on it. And I will again ask that you watch the Samurai Goomba's videos on Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage, at least his advanced combat techniques video, and his video on how to properly use Kenshiro. Because, like, he did a lot of research and brings up a lot of fair points that I didn't. And I think his videos are generally more well-structured and well-spoken than mine. And maybe sometime he should invest in a game capture so he can, like, record the game. Or maybe Koei Tecmo should just release the game on PC, like they've released literally every other Musou game on PC by now. Ken's Rage deserves as many second chances as it can get. Actually, many games deserve as many second chances as they can get, this one included. You know, part of the inspiration for this video series is the idea that Sneak King deserves a second chance. It deserves to be seen as a valuable game, as a valuable piece of game history and game design. There we go, all 20 deliveries without breaking the chain. Fucking finally, that took ages. Thank you for your consumption of our culinary goods, and I hope that you return to purchase more in the future.